His legacy spans nearly 4 decades. Abe entered active politics way back in 1982. 40 years later, he was still on the campaign trail, and during this time, he went through a lot. From political setbacks to medical issues to policy criticism, but through all of it, Shinzo Abe never compromised. Here's a look back at the life and times of Japan's longest-serving leader.
December 2012, Japan is in political turmoil. 5 prime ministers have come and gone since 2007. None lasted more than 16 months. The Japanese people want stability more than anything, and one leader promised them exactly that.
I want to bring Japan back to the place where Japanese people and Japanese children who were born in this country can feel proud that they were born here.
The voters agreed. What followed was a transformational premiership, one that stretched from 2012 to 2020. In this time, Abe changed Japan's political and economic journey. He was a nationalist, he was a reformist, and to some, he was controversial. Abe was born in Tokyo in 1954. He came from Japanese political royalty. His father served as the foreign minister in the 1980s. His grandfather was prime minister in the late 50s. In 1977, Abe graduated from Tokyo Seikei University. He then moved to the United States to study public policy. 2 years later, he joined the workforce. Steel companies were all the rage back then, so Abe joined Kobe Steel. But the corporate romance wouldn't last long. In 1982, he officially entered politics. Abe's first assignment was with his father. He pursued various positions, both in the Foreign Ministry and the Liberal Democratic Party. But electoral success would have to wait. It came almost 11 years later in 1993. Abe was elected as an LDP lawmaker. He was now set on the path to political greatness. In 2005, Abe got another big break. He was appointed Chief Cabinet Secretary by the Prime Minister, a powerful position in Japan's government. This appointment put him next in line for the premiership. 1 year later, he did just that. As Prime Minister, Abe implemented his conservative policies. This included economic reforms, a tougher stance against North Korea, and seeking a reset with the South. In his second stint, these policies would be rebranded as Abenomics. But in 2006, they were still a work in progress. For a rising political scion, Abe's first stint was underwhelming. His party lost control of the parliament. His government was hit by a series of scandals, and his approval ratings plunged to 30%. By now, Abe was struggling with another challenge, one that would haunt him again in 2020. Ulcerative colitis, an inflammatory bowel disease. Citing health reasons, Abe stepped down. His premiership lasted all of 1 year and 1 day. Abe's first term may have ended prematurely, but one contribution stands out from that period: his reinvention of the Quad. Abe spelled out his vision for the Indo-Pacific in 2007. He was addressing the Indian Parliament. The Pacific and the Indian Oceans are now bringing about a dynamic coupling as seas of freedom and of prosperity. A broader Asia that broke away geographical boundaries is now beginning to take on a distinct form. With that, Quad 2.0 was born. A more resilient, a more aggressive, and a more focused Quad. Their first joint military drills would be held in April 2007. The first meeting would follow the next month. Health issues could not keep Abe down for long. In 2012, he made a comeback, storming to party leadership. and then to the Prime Minister's office. This time he was there to stay. Abe would go on to win 2 landslide elections, once in 2014 and again in 2017. In his second term, Abe was a lot more decisive. His focus was on the economy and security. Abe fought for a loose monetary policy. He pushed for fiscal stimulus. And he unveiled structural economic reforms. Analysts dubbed it Abenomics. Abe jolted Japan out of its pacifist leaning. He emerged as a foreign policy hawk, openly talking about rethinking Japan's security policy.
What's necessary is a pragmatic action plan based on reality and the establishment of a jurisdictional basis to back it up. That's all. I will push forward to re-establish Japan's security policy based on reality.
He wanted to rewrite Article 9 of Japan's constitution. This article outlaws war. It prevents Japan from raising standing armies or building missiles. But Abe saw this as a handicap. He sensed the rising challenges from China and North Korea, so Abe promised to tweak pacifism to balance self-defense and peace. And that will forever be Abe's greatest legacy. He convinced a nation scarred by nuclear weapons that self-defense is important. He wanted Japan to spend 2% of its GDP on defense. It was unthinkable before Abe's time, but today it is official government policy. Abe's hawkishness has earned him criticism too. In 2013, he visited the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo. It is a controversial memorial to Japan's World War II leaders, many of whom were war criminals. He also presided over souring ties with South Korea. Abe was accused of playing down Japan's colonial crimes in the Korean peninsula. In 2020, Abe's health issues surfaced again. He stepped down as Prime Minister. His biggest regret? Not being able to host the Tokyo Olympics. It was Abe who led Japan's Olympic campaign. But the COVID-19 pandemic denied him the chance to see it through. A setback for sure, but a mere speck in Abe's towering career. Longest-serving Prime Minister, youngest post-war Prime Minister, first Prime Minister born after World War II. These are just some of the records etched to Abe's name. Over 4 decades, he scaled the heights of Japanese politics, and there he will forever remain. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.